We're back on the My Aggie Nation podcast. It's just me and Travis today. No Zach. We'll catch him next week, hopefully. But Travis, we just got to hear from Kenny Harrison a little bit about Nate Yeski, A&M's new associate head baseball coach. We've talked a lot about baseball this summer just with the coaching change and everything. But, now that the summer's progressed, Jim Schlossnagle's kind of filled out his coaching staff. He's got some pieces together. So let's just kind of go through that. So I guess just let's just get your thoughts on what Schloss has built coaching staff-wise now that things are kind of completed.
Well, to me, it goes into some of these people that I've talked to surrounding baseball, surrounding the A&M program, and kind of what they've thought about some of these hires. And really, everyone who I've talked to, including what we heard from Kenny, is that this is kind of an all-star coaching staff that Jim Schlossnagle's put together. I mean, you get in Nate Yeski, you have a guy who has won a national championship, been to Omaha countless times with Oregon State, took Arizona's pitching staff from like a 6 team ERA down to like a 3. This Pat in his first season at Arizona, has experience, was in contention actually to get the Oregon State head coaching job. A couple of years ago, and that's why he ended up actually moving to Arizona, because he didn't get it. But a guy that is being looked at by many people as a potential head coach, and you have that an associate head coach with Jim Schlossnagle. Nolan Kane is a guy who is widely recruited as one of the best recruiters in the nation. Look at some of the people that they've been able to bring into LSU in years past. And as we'll talk about a little bit later, was to kind of break down the roster and what that might look like. He's already started off with a bang, bringing in some guys and doing some stuff to help bolster this roster. And then Michael Early, I can't say enough about the guy, just in getting to chat with him a little bit. Really nice guy, and is a guy that major leaguers have started to seek out in the summertime, because he was over at Arizona State in the Arizona area. Major leaguers are there working out a lot of times in the spring, and a lot of guys would come just work out with him, hang out with him, realize, hey, this guy knows what he's talking about, and would use him as an extra resource in helping to develop their hitting. Younger guy with a lot of upside, a lot of potential, and I think it's just an absolutely all-star coaching roster, and everyone else seems to think so. The one that really stood out to me was when I talked to their transfer Trey Dillard, who's coming in, closer coming in from Missouri. He basically, I mean, he knew of Coach Schlossnagle, of course, and knew what his pedigree was. But really, the deal that sold him was looking at the guys that he brought in around him and the kind of coaching staff that A&M is going to have, and said that was the reason why it was a pretty quick decision to come to A&M. So pretty all-star cast he's assembled.
For sure. You mentioned Trey Dillard. A&M's signed or gotten commitments from a few other transfers, looking at Dylan Rock from UTSA, Kyle Lovelace, Houston, and most recently Cole Kolar from Hawaii. What do you make of some of the transfers that A&M's brought in, and how do you feel like these pieces are going to fit into the lineup?
Well, they had to bring in some veteran experience, some transfers, because of several reasons. One, A&M is losing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 players just whose eligibility, well, they could have another year of eligibility, but for all intents and purposes, eligibility are up here at A&M, which was a good chunk of the starting lineup. It was also an A&M team that ranked in the bottom 4 in the SEC in most offensive categories, and just didn't hit the ball well, and they needed to bring some spark bats to this lineup, and they've already started doing that with these 4, with at least 3 of these 4 guys, because they're position players. Cole Kolar, shortstop from Hawaii, middle infielder. You got to think that Cly Harrison has that shortstop position locked up pretty well, one of the few starting positions that is locked up, so he might see him a little bit second base or a little bit third base. We'll have to see. Dylan Rock, an outfielder from UTSA, is actually getting some action right now with the Brazos Valley Bombers. And it can hit the ball a little bit. And I know it's going to be a hot take on this one, but it seems like a lot of the Bombers guys for their walk-up songs are doing some kind of funny stuff. He's threw in a little bit of Higher by Creed, which in the ironic circles, great ironic walk-up song. I'm just saying. Just throwing that out there. He already has my vote for breakout player of the year because of that. And then a lot people have had a lot of good things to say about Kyle Lovelace from Houston, a catcher who's coming in. A lot of people in the know saying one of the best defensive catchers in the country. And that'll be important to replace Mikey Honer and also give Taylor Smith a little bit of a push. Taylor Smith actually got a late call up to the Cape Cod League and has been playing up there this summer. A guy that a little bit of a true outcome guy, strikeout or power hit, slugging hitting. And so if you can round that out for a little bit of average and work a little bit on that defense, because he wasn't as necessarily as sound as Mikey Honer was last year, but that's a good thing that Kyle Levis will get to push him on. This coming up. So that's what kind of the transfer situation looks like.
For sure. A lot of players are leaving A&M though. Can you just kind of name some guys that have entered the transfer portal and maybe some guys that could be some key losses for the Aggies potentially too?
And there's going to be more than this when it's all said and done. To go a little bit into the intricacies of everything going on, this year's the first year that the MLB Draft is going to be after the scholarship renewal deadline, which was July 1st. For baseball coaches, and that presents a little bit of a difficult issue because coaches have to offer scholarships to players at that point, whether they know if they're going to come back or not. And technically, guys like Will Frizzell, Mikey Honer, Chandler Josewalk, those guys, because of COVID, they actually have another year of eligibility they can use. With a guy like Will Frizzell, you think he's going to go, but you don't want to be the guy that if for some reason he doesn't go as high as he wants, the money's not there, there's a little bit of a dispute about a contract thing. I mean, you would want a Will Frizzell back on this A&M squad if you could have him. So the coaches have to extend scholarship offers to those players and can't overbook themselves necessarily. If Frizzell, Josewalk, some of these players actually do decide to sign and go pro, that they get that scholarship back. But at that point, who has been claimed, who hasn't been claimed, it's going to be a little bit of a free-for-all. So it's hard to know exactly what this roster is going to look like completely until they know who for sure is going pro and who isn't coming back. So things are going to shake out a little bit more. Of course, the draft is next week, and we can talk a little bit more about that here in a second. But that being said, the guys that we know for sure so far that are leaving is infielder Ty Coleman, reliever Mason Ornelas, and freshman who didn't get a whole lot of start, but Kobe Andrade, who was both a position player and a pitcher, mostly saw pitching. He's in the transfer portal right now. And so those are the guys we know are leaving. And then, of course, the seniors that you had, that eligibility technically isn't up, but you would think that they would be moving on in some direction is, of course, outfielder Ray Alejo, catcher Mikey Honer, infielder Logan Sartori, infielder Bryce Blom, pitcher Chandler Josewalk, pitcher Bryce Miller, pitcher Dustin Sines, and first baseman Will Frizzell. And when you look at the diamond, really, as far as guys who have significant starts with the Aggies returning, that leaves Austin Boast in the outfield, Brett Minich in the outfield, Logan Britt in the outfield, Kalai Harrison at shortstop, and then Taylor Smith with a few spot starts here and there on doubleheaders and things like that. He'll be in a battle, of course, like we said, with Kyle Lovelace. So that leaves third base, second base, first base, center field, designated hitter, as positions that they'll be competing for, plus a good majority of the pitching staff. So it's going to be a very interesting and competitive fall leading into a spring next year to try to see what positions can be filled there.
For sure. One guy that is coming back, you mentioned Logan Britt, a guy that was leaving, decides to come back. How big is it for A&M to get a guy like that back?
I think it's good because he is a good defensive outfielder, and he probably has the strongest arm in the team. I mean, he can just flat out throw the ball. But that being said, he has to step up his hitting a little bit, and that's something that I know the A&M coaching staff is going to want out of him from the season last year. He had a couple of big home runs, but didn't hit for necessarily the best average, as I don't actually have all that stuff pulled up, and I probably should. But they do want to see a little bit more production at the plate with him. So you would think that he's a guy that's a pretty much a shoe. And he hit 270 last year. Wasn't terrible. But they're going to want a little bit more production out of that position, because they just have to have more production because of where they were hitting last year. Had 54 strikeouts, which was actually second on the team to Kalai Harrison this year. So need to cut down on the strikeouts, and that's where you can see a little bit of a difference in that batting average. But it is a big get. It is a big get just to have a little bit of stability for some of the guys. Have another one of those guys who's been around and knows the situation, knows a little bit something about Aggie baseball and everything like that. And he's a valuable player.
For sure. Well, as you mentioned, it's still going to be kind of a fluid situation, roster management as we look at A&M baseball going through the fall and into the spring. But you also mentioned how the MLB Draft is next week. So let's just touch on that for a second. I think it's a no-brainer that Will Frizzell is probably going to get drafted. But, just kind of take through, what the MLB Draft is going to look like this year, because it is still a little bit different, a little shorter, I believe. And, if there's any other A&M players you think's got a good shot at being taken.
Yeah, only 20 rounds this year. And you say only. I mean, there was a time where Major League Baseball went until every team passed, and there was no set amount of rounds. So only 20 rounds. It's definitely an improvement from last year where there was only 5 rounds because of the COVID-19 pandemic. No minor league baseball being played, so there wasn't a lot of places to put these guys. So that's what resulted in the much smaller draft last year. It'll be interesting to see that the guys that I have my eye on. Of course, Will Frizzell should be the first guy off the board for the Aggies with what he was able to do last year, an All-American pick for A&M this year, and you would think he would be one of the first guys off the board. Beyond that, Chandler Joswalk and Bryce Miller are 2 guys that'll be interesting because you have to look that Joswalk was a dependable arm out of Rob Childress's bullpen, and frankly, one of the only guys that he felt like he could go to out of the bullpen consistently. He racked up a lot of innings last year. And you got to think that with what he was able to do for the most part, that would earn him some money, but I'm not quite sure where he might go. And Bryce Miller, just out of raw stuff. I mean, I don't think he had to be called into the starting rotation this year because of just kind of not a whole lot of depth in starting pitchers for the Aggies. I don't think he translates as a starting pitcher at the next level because he doesn't have enough pitches. He's basically a fastball slider kind of guy. Sometimes has a changeup, but not usually a guy that can go through 2 times in the order. I think there was even some parts of the season where they were maybe considering using an opener and coming back with him a little bit later. So if he goes, it'll probably be in a relief position, and that might drop him down a little bit more, but he has the stuff. He has a electric fastball. And then I think a guy that really helped himself out returning was Ray Alejo in center field, where he got to really showcase and was one of the best hitters, one of the consistent hitters on A&M's team. And of course has just absolutely unbelievable range in the outfield. He should go at some point in the draft too. And I think he helped his case out a lot by returning for another year. The guys that I'm not sure of is the Mikey Honers, Logan Sartori's, and Bryce Blom's. They were in and out of the lineup. Honer, of course, was in the lineup almost every day. I'm not sure if his batting statistics will be enough, but he could be a late round signing. Bryce Blom and Logan Sartori were in and out of the lineup so much. We'll have to see where how teams rate them and where they'll go with that. But if you want to put my money, Frizzell, Alejo, and Joswalk are for sure locks to go, and probably Bryce Miller too.
All right. Well, Travis, before we go, we have to have some kind of food discussion because why wouldn't we? Because this is now what the podcast has turned into because we let you be a part of it. I have hijacked the podcast with food discussion. But Travis, I know you're excited about this because Velvet Taco is coming to Century Square at the end of August. So, Velvet Taco, a little bit of a different place. They're kind of known for their unique, different kind of international flared food. But what's your favorite taco at Velvet Taco?
I've got 2.
Okay.
Well, first, you got to start off. They have great chips and queso because if I remember right, you might be just completely blowing smoke here, but instead of using water in their queso, they actually use coconut water. So it kind of has like a little sweet kick to it, which is really great. Then if you're a fan of the alcoholic beverage, their ranch water, very good. They have like a tequila margarita kind of mix that they drain about half of a Topo Chico and put it in there and kind of mix it all together. It's great. But as far as tacos goes, my two go-tos are the tikka chicken, which is kind of a Indian fusion taco. Really great. If you like spicy, if you like a buffalo wing, it's kind of similar with a little bit better flair. And then weirdly enough, they have a bacon cheeseburger taco that I lean on real hard. Very good. Those are my two go-to tacos.
Okay. Well, I might be checking out Velvet Taco. I know
It's delicious.
I know you'll be going up to Century Square more than you probably already do. It'll
It's
be a good
delicious.
alternative to Piata.
For sure. Well, that's all the time we have this week. We kind of are putting a bow on baseball unless something else crazy happens for the summer, because guess what? We have not only the Olympics coming up in 2 weeks, but we have SEC Media Days coming up in 2 weeks. And then 2 weeks after that, it's the start of fall camp. Football season is upon us, Alex. Are your football pants going crazy?
I'm a little excited. I'll say it.
Okay, well, we will be back with a lot more Olympic and football action in the weeks ahead. So for Alex Miller, I'm Travis Brown. This is the My Aggie Nation Podcast, and we'll see you next week.